how do we make sure that we innovate? And I realized that there's absolutely zero technology for lawyers, and lawyers play a very important function because every dollar that comes in and goes out of a company is because somebody signed a piece of paper. Now, if you don't know what you signed, you don't know what to pay and what to get received. So Spotdraft was the genesis of that very snowy night, and an article on self-driving cars.
Cool, cool start. But the problem also you got from industry insight, right? Because if you look at a lot of entrepreneurs that become successful, they have some sort of an industry insight or a recognition of the problem. So it goes beyond the reading of an article. You really understood the industry, right?
Yes. So I face this problem day in, day out, every day. If I had to create a new document, I would have to copy and paste everything from scratch and start editing the document. And in 2 weeks, that document would be called version 21.1, hopefully final version .docx. And now I don't know where that version lies and what it does. So there had to be a smarter way to do this, and definitely that industry experience was of great help.
Yeah, and then you. But the thing is, what I know from law firms is that every lawyer has their own preference to how to create the optimal document and contract. So they all have their own. I think they call it boilerplates, but they have their own framework, their structures, and they almost when they are in a negotiation with another lawyer try to squeeze it into their format, right?
Yes, yes.
So you have an industry that has a way of working, and now you are coming up with a solution that's also almost taking away the special expertise of an individual lawyer. How were you received?
Yeah, so initially it was, that's a great question. Initially, it was a lot of pushback, and people just laughed it off, saying, hey, you can't be doing this. This seems like you can never replace lawyers. And we said, hey, we don't want to replace lawyers. We just want to make you smarter and better so that you do things that you're supposed to do and not just copying, pasting words and formatting. So what we did is our system also adapts to the drafting style of every lawyer. So if there is a boilerplate that works for a law firm, they could use that. And it will also compare that boilerplate against an incoming document and tell you whether that matches or does not match. It's not a word for word match, but a semantic understanding of the match. Let's take a step back. Let's look at photography, accounts, books of accounts, and architects. Architects would draw with their hand, and accounting would be actual books of accounts. And as kids, we would take these photograph films and get them developed in the studio. And look at what Adobe, AutoCAD, and Intuit did. They took an essential paper process, they digitized it, built an entire industry around it, but also gave the power of photography to the rest of us. So what we are trying to do is take what is an essential manual, slow and labored process, and which is currently with lawyers, and automate that with software so that the lawyers can become more productive and legal becomes more sort of democratic for people who can't afford it.
Is that also what drives you as an entrepreneur? Do you want to make it more democratic?
Yes. So one of my passions is to be able to take law to the common man, which is what drives me. There is a monetary element to it, but that is just a byproduct. At the end of the day, what we want to be is for people to have good, affordable legal services with the use of product, and only go for specializations to a lawyer. So Thomas, you and I can take a selfie, put a filter, put it on Facebook. But if I were getting married, I would need a photographer to do it. Similarly, most people should be able to create their documents themselves, and except for extreme specializations, go to the lawyer to get it done.
Yeah. So if you look at our students, they all are setting up businesses, which are pretty standardized products, right? But then in the special arrangements and negotiations among founders, you have some adjustments. But are you now offering services to law firms, or are you offering also the law to, for instance, our startup entrepreneurs who want to register their business?
Right. So our primary offering is to companies, and secondary offering is to the law firms. So our primary customer are people who either don't have a formal legal function or have a small legal function, but they're unable to either understand what needs to be done or just can't handle the volume. So we do help. We work closely with small and medium businesses to ensure that their contracts are standardized and they're not flouting the law in any way.
So if you would that also work for our student entrepreneurs?
Yes, absolutely.
And how that would that work? Do they take a subscription out from your business, and then they get access to a process, or what do you offer startup entrepreneurs?
Right. So what we offer is a entire end-to-end contract automation platform. What that means is we will offer them their standard contracts that they need to draft on an ongoing basis as a quick questionnaire, which they can fill in, sign it and send it to the counterparty. If they want to negotiate, uh, the counterparty can negotiate on the platform, sign it and send it back. The document gets stored and they get reminded about key dates that they need to know. What's coming up for renewal, what's getting terminated, when are they supposed to receive payments. And if they have a contract which is not theirs, but it's come from a counterparty, it'll also read through it and tell them, hey, these are the 5 things that don't work for you. And these are the 2 things that work for you, so don't touch it. But these 5 things, renegotiate it with the following clauses.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around what the service is, because this seems like commercial contracts, correct?
Correct.
So it's not. Is it also broader than that, or is it primarily focused on commercial contracts?
It's primarily focused on commercial contracts. Having said that, there is no other contract type that the platform cannot handle. The only things that we don't do is incorporation of the company itself. Um, that is something that Spotdraft does not do. But what we do is once the company is incorporated, everything that you need to get started, to hire your first co-founder, to making sure that you have you get your first customer, your employment agreements, or your lease agreements, all of those can be run past Spotdraft.
Okay, and so you're taking away quite a big piece of the law firm industry, right?
Uh, this is something that probably law firms don't want to get into. They want to be involved in the niche work that they do, which revolves around high, sort of, high value M&A transactions, arbitrations, things like that. Whereas the kind of work that is needed by the entrepreneurs here is something that they are going to rip a draft out of the internet and use it, and they don't know if that works for them or not. And then going to a lawyer may be too expensive. So we offer a more affordable and a more dependable solution than ripping something off the internet or going to a lawyer per se.
Yeah, but you're also facilitating law firms, or not?
Yes, we do. So we have a unique editor that is built for lawyers, so they can review and review contracts um, faster than manually having to go through it, and that's what makes Spotdraft unique.
Yeah, cool. It's based on AI, machine learning, I'm guessing.
Yes, it is. Everything is driven by machine learning, and what that does is it goes through it goes through your contract to understand what works and what doesn't, and it relies on initial usage to understand what does your industry need and adapt itself to your needs.
Yeah. Therefore, I have a question from Leonard in our chat, and he's really into machine learning and artificial intelligence. And he asks, in that automation process, how do you get to personalization? How do you
Right.
personalize it?
Right. So there are two levels of personalization. One is the contract itself, like how do you make sure that the contract meets your need? And second is how do you make sure that the contract is compliant with your standards? As far as ensuring that the contract meets your need, what we do is we would have analyzed multiple contracts for your industry, for your background, to be able to tell you this draft works best for you. And then once that is done, every action that you take on the platform, every negotiation that you do on the platform goes in as training data for the platform. And over time, if you keep rejecting a clause that comes from the counterparty, it'll learn that, hey, listen, this is something that's not acceptable to Leonard's company. So let me go ahead and show this is not compliant the next time it comes. So there is a auto learning feature that is built into the platform that adapts to your needs.
Okay, thanks. Does that answer your question, Leonard?
Yes, thank you. I was also curious if you use maybe blockchain for the contracts, and what confidence level are you using when you add clauses?
Right. So we don't use blockchain for our contracts, but the AI confidence. If AI shows something to you, it's at a 98% confidence, and that's 98% not just on the data that's come from you, but also compared to what has come from your peers who use a similar clause. So it would map that against that sort of testing data and come out with a 98% accuracy.
No, I see Leonard nodding, so I think you answered this question in full. Thanks for that. What I really like about your business, that the fact is that you're taking an industry to the new world, so to speak, so taking it to the self-driving car level. So bringing in AI, machine learning. A lot of people that are unaware of the possibilities of machine learning and AI, they look at it and it's an animal, right? It's a big beast that can swallow you alive, because there's no way that you can understand or figure out what's possible, what's not. Is there a way to explain to the non-AI and non-machine learning experts how they could benefit from the new technologies that are out there?
Right. If you can think of anything that you would do repetitive and manually that involved some amount of decision making, the AI can replicate some of it to a level. So let's take an example of a 2-year-old who says, this is a monkey and this is a donkey, or a 3-year-old that says that. That's identification, and the AI can be trained to identify different animals. Now let's go a level further. You went to school and you did Pressy writing. I don't know what it's called. It's basically taking a large article and summarizing it to a shorter article. And what that means is it can take I did that in 9th grade in school. So you can read a large article and paraphrase it into a smaller one. Again, something that involved simple decision making and paraphrasing. That is, if you give it enough examples, then it'll be able to summarize that for you. If you tell that for every king, there's a queen, for every man, there's a woman, then they'll also be able to understand that for every other male function, there will be a female function as an answer to a question that's asked. So it's basically making it learn concepts and then answering some of those concepts without manually interfering in it.
One of our entrepreneurs also in this call is Sonia. Sonia is setting up a platform for people with a disability to be able to travel the world. So one of the things you could say is that information about an hotel or a premises, if it's wheelchair friendly or not, it goes beyond just the notion it's wheelchair friendly with a check mark, because in practice that doesn't mean that it's a trouble-free destination. So what she could have help with is to figure out what hotels and what circumstances fit her means that she defines as, like for instance, if you compare it to the law firm, this is my boilerplate, this is what I consider a suitable location, and can I then scan all the offerings so that I can make an optimal match with the person with the disability, with the type of location they would want to go to. Would that be possible in the AI and machine learning type of situation?
Yeah, I guess, first of all, Sonia, a fantastic idea. Best of luck. I think it's a very noble cause as well. Yes, it is possible given sufficient training data, if it's able to, say, look at a Google Map image followed by reviews, read with, the hotel listings across different websites, and, give a confidence score of how, disabled, handicap or disabled friendly it is, then you can use that training data to make future predictions as well on newer hotels that come up without having that background information.
Do you understand the answer, Sonia?
A little bit. So
What yeah, go ahead.
When what I understand is when you have the data already, the AI can find it for you. So
if you give it enough background data about what is of other similar places, then it can learn from that data to make a predictive analysis on a new hotel or a new restaurant that is added to your listing, and give it a confidence score saying we are about 95% confident based on our analysis that this is friendly for a certain category.
Okay, but can it also be more specific? Like for someone in a wheelchair, they can it's different for one person and the other, but the hotel can have, let's say, one person in a wheelchair can take one step and the other one cannot. So for the first person, they can walk the stairs a little bit and the other one cannot. Like, how do we make a difference in that?
Yeah, so again, that probably will depend on granularity of data. And again, I'm not the greatest expert on machine learning, but based on what I've learned on during my course at Spotdraft is the more granular the data is and the greater variety and depth, it should be able to solve that use case as well, Sonia.
Okay.
Okay, thanks so much for answering that. Another question from Jess in the chat. How do you deal with providing your software with training data when you're still online in the beginning stage?
Great question, Jess. What we did was we went through a bunch of contracts of listed companies that were already out there, who had listed their contracts. So stock exchanges require you to declare and submit your key contract. So we got that training data from there. And then we also tied up with a bunch of law firms and other legal service providers who contributed to the data in order to help our platform work better.
That's interesting. How did you convince, because I could imagine that they could see you as a new entrant to the market, disrupting it. How did you get them to see you as a facilitator so that they would open up their treasure chest of contracts for you to dig in and analyze?
Right. So the central problem that law firms have is get more and more customers without adding to cost, which is adding more associates and partners to their billing system. Now, if they're able to do that by taking on more work with the help of AI, that really is, uh, that is the future. So you'll be surprised that a lot of lawyers, I mean, very few lawyers think this is completely useless. They know that AI is the future. There is a promised land that AI gives, especially in the legal field, but it may be a few years away, and contributing to it maybe for the right reasons. Obviously, all of that data was anonymized, and it was completely stripped of any metadata that was there.
Yeah, but you're entering a market, offering something that what I see in the Netherlands, for instance, with among the bigger law firms, is that they're all looking up to the biggest one to invest in building the knowledge, building up the thing that they can then use also. So because there's an upfront investment to build the intelligence, and in the Netherlands, all of them are looking to the bigger players, saying like, okay, well, you invest in the knowledge, and then the rest can benefit, right? So there's a big upfront investment. I don't know how it's abroad, but in the Netherlands, they're all private-owned businesses. So the lawyers, the partners, are the owners. So if they invest in this type of technology, it's their own personal investment, which is something they would rather have someone else invest into that they can then license than that they would actually build up themselves.
You're right, and so we've seen in other areas as well where law firms have come together to sponsor and build technology like this. But the primary challenge with doing that is, they're lawyers, they're not technology, and this is a technology solution, not a legal solution. So and it's not just one faculty that's involved. There are multiple different disciplines that need to come together to build the perfect storm in order to be able to create the right solution, and that's not easy. So we thought that the path of least resistance is not to ask for time or money from lawyers, because we had a lot of lawyers in Spotdraft who were working on this, but to get data which is not available anywhere else, and that makes the platform unique. I can't stress enough the importance of having the depth and width of data, especially say for confidential information like contracts, and the kind of jump that you can see across when compared to your competitors is purely because you've got better data in there.
Yeah. So because in a lot of law firms, tech is seen as a cost and not as a revenue building entity.
Correct.
So that's why they are hesitant in investing in tech.
See, if you charge by the hour for your work, and you can do that work faster, that is loss of revenue. But if you tell them you can get on more work and get on more hours without having to, add to cost, that becomes an advantage. I've seen that a lot of other what's called the legal operations players charge based on revenue saved as a percentage of revenue saved, or a percent of expense saved or revenue made, in order to be as their pricing strategy.
So what you did to, if I understand correctly, is that in order to convince them to contribute to the building of your business and to let you in as a facilitator to their business, is you really understood their financial model, and you came up with solutions for problems they had in theirs, correct?
Absolutely, and that is so important to any business, to understand what value do you drive. Is it going to be a bottom line function or a top line function? Are you going to create more revenue? Are you going to save, cost? And so that you can eventually figure out what your sales journey is going to look like. In our case, it hits both, because if you sell to an in-house counsel, which is a lawyer that works within a company, they are always a cost. They don't really bring in revenue, whereas the only place that lawyers bring in revenue is law firms. So the positioning of the product will differ based on who you sell to.
Yeah. And how did you, can you explain how you, because you were working in the industry, you were working on Wall Street as a lawyer, and then you decided to start your own business. Can you rewind your recording of your journey and go back to that instant? Why you chose to start it, and how you got started?
Yeah, you can say I've always had the entrepreneurial itch. Um, I've always wanted to start a business of my own. I wish this existed. Um, you know, the entrepreneurship school existed when I wanted to start up, because uh, I'm the least qualified for my role as a co-founder because I didn't go to the co-founder school. Um, and uh, so going back, what really drove me was I thought that there is a clear problem that exists and the system is broken. And the system is broken because lawyers are slow, manual, and expensive. And it is a one-to-one service. And historically, one-to-one services have been disrupted by making it one-to-many, such as accounting, or photography, like the example I gave you. And the way to do that was through software. So I understood that legal was a problem, technology was a solution, and legal tech was the combined solution that had to come together. Um, but I understood law and I knew very little technology, which is where I met my co-founder, who went to Carnegie Mellon, computer science, used to work with Google in New York. Um, One day he sends me a contract and he says, "Bro, you're the only free lawyer I know. Do you want to have a look and tell me if it works?" I looked at it and I said, um, I came back with my track changes and I said, "Hey, is there a way where if this word comes up, you add the following two lines beneath it as a disclaimer?" He said, "That's called machine learning." And that was the genesis of Spotdraft as a company. And we said, if this is a problem for someone who works at Google and is still unable to draft the right contract despite his knowledge of the world, uh, and figure out what was wrong, probably the machine can help him get there faster without having to come to a lawyer like me.
Yeah, and that's how you started. That takes up a lot of programming up front before you can go to the market. How did you cope with that?
Actually, we took a slightly different route. Um, we did not start programming first. We first went to market and figured out, does this problem exist? And this is the founder's sort of fallacy. Things that affect us a lot, could be problems for us, but a startup may not be the right solution for it, or the way that solution is delivered may not be optimal or ideal. So in order to understand that, what we did was picked up our phones and started speaking to everyone we knew, asking them, "Hey, what's your problem? How do you solve it? How big is this problem? Do you think you would need technology to solve it?" And when we found some validation, we got what in our heads was version 0 of the product. And we went from, once that started, is when we started reaching out to the right partners, hiring the right team, and building out, writing the first lines of code.
Yeah, interesting. Most of the students in the group now are in the value creation module, where they do exactly that: is test their risk use assumptions. So, like you said, what we consider a problem, or what's a problem to us, doesn't necessarily need to be a problem for the market. So we had to go call and validate. So now there's entrepreneurial mastery language. So we call it validated learning and risk use assumptions testing, and we have the MOM test, so that the data you get from the calls is actually something that you can trust. Are you familiar with the MOM test as an explanation?
Yes, we actually call it the grandmom test. So we went a level above.
Yeah. So you got to make sure that they don't tell you, yeah, it's a great idea, and then you build it, and then nobody buys it. So so that's pretty in line with what the students are doing at the moment. So then you found that was not only a problem you thought existed, but you got proof from the market that it was actual problem that they were willing to solve with tech, correct?
Yes. So the assumption is there a problem? Is that problem significant enough? Have people tried to solve that problem using other means, right? And what does it cost them for not solving that problem today? And if it could be time for people, convenience. Eh, for example, Uber would before Uber came, you would wave your hand and stop a taxi. Now it is a convenient solution that Uber gives you. So is there a problem? How is that problem being solved? Is it significant enough? And then eventually, is there economic value in us solving that problem?
Yeah. So and then you figure out that the answers were yes, it makes sense. How did you then get started?
So
What was
we
your next
actually,
step?
yeah. So once we sorted that, we started, you know, going slightly into the product side of things. We said, okay, this is a problem. This is the ideal solution that people want, and what can I do in the next 120 days? In over the next 4 months to solve that problem. Because I said, if the first version of this problem cannot be solved in 4 months, then it's probably not, we're not doing something right as a process. So we built a very simple workflow using some freelance, developers, some in-house developers, and wireframed it on a blackboard and started coding it out. And then what we did is once the first version was built, we went to all of these LinkedIn groups, friends and family, WhatsApp groups, and said, hey, listen, all you lawyers, we've got something for you. Do you want to try this out? And started collecting feedback from them on what we were doing right and wrong.
Yeah. And then you were able to get feedback on it. So you had this first development phase. It's still costing money. It's still not making revenue. How did you get to your first revenue?
So I went and sold the product for a small sum of money as our first customer before writing the first line of code. Somebody liked the idea a lot and said, hey, listen, whenever this gets built, I'd like to use it. Here is the first $150. It wasn't a lot of money, but we did that. But then the next thing we said was, we started tweaking. We still didn't want to monetize it. We started tweaking the product to make sure that we knew what the right hook was to get them inside the platform and to get them start using it. That was the next step. Monetization followed two ways. One was through customer money and through VC funding. Once we started getting some initial traction is when we went to our seed investors and said, hey, this is us. This is the product. This is some of the initial traction we've got. Would you be interested in investing?
Yeah. What did you think convinced the VCs to give you the funding before having massive traction?
Yeah, I think so. I've spoken to a lot of VCs on how they look at early stage, and each one has their own process. But I think one thing that they're looking for is how strong are the founders in what they do? Like, is this a problem that they would understand well? Do they have the right background to understand it, or some life experience to be able to do that? And second is the market large enough for the product to sort of grow? And in our case, we were three founders. One was a product expert, second was a lawyer, third was an engineering brain. And the problem, is big enough for everyone, because each one of us is here because we signed a piece of paper somewhere, and that was a contract. The leases that we sit in are a contract. The Zoom subscription is a contract. So they knew that the problem was big enough. So that did not require any sort of telling or cajoling.
Yeah. Okay. And then your first round of capital, what did you, where were you able to close?
We were out to raise $300,000, and we ended up raising about $750,000. Uh, we were oversubscribed. We went about strategically on, and this is very important. You will find a lot of money out there, but finding the color of the money is very important. Um, you need the right early stage partners to be able to guide you through that process, um, to make you the right connections, to help you hire well, uh, and who understand your struggles as a founder. It's not a, give me the MIS report struggle. It's the struggle that, hey, I can't find the right talent. I can't, I'm unable to crack a product problem or a market problem. And they should be able to either help you directly or connect you to the right people to find the solution.
Yeah, cool. I also know you closed 2.1.
Yeah, we actually closed that round was, when it went to press, it was 2.1, but we actually closed 4. So we raised $4 million in that round in total. We didn't do any press around it by design, because it gives you a lot of unwanted attention to the funding, which is important. But what's more important is the product that you're building.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Congrats also.
Thank you. So what we did between the round was showed traction and showed improvement on the product and revenue, and then went to the same people saying, hey, we want to raise the next round, and they introduced us to our next round investors.
Yeah. And how big is your team at the moment?
So we are now about 44 people, and we'll hit about 60 people in the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah, cool. So big recruitment operation going.
Yes.
And in what areas are you? So you're a lot of developers, obviously, or data scientists. What do you see as the future for your business?
Right. So we're hiring both on product and engineering, which is data scientists and front-end developers, back-end developers. In addition, we're also aggressively hiring on the sales and marketing fronts, to sort of, now we've built a product. Now is the time to grow it and show people the value of the product, and also get more people to use it, because you can go only as far with word of mouth and inbound interest. Now is the time to explode and go outbound.
Yeah, cool. Is it? Do you still use your initial why at democratizing law as one of the key shared beliefs in the group? Now that you are growing, and is that what you also use for recruitment, or is it that you just want to get the best tech people in? And is that only your belief?
I lost you for a second there, Thomas. Was your question, what is your hiring process?
No, sorry, Dan. My question was, when you started off, your personal why was democratizing law, right? Bringing law to the, I wrote it down here. You probably know better
Bringing
than I
law
do.
to the common man.
Yeah. Is that also still part of the recruitment process? Is that also a belief that on which you select and recruit people, or is it turning into a real business, and now you have to let go? That's still your drive, but it's not what's in the DNA of the company.
So it is in the DNA of the company. It may not be immediate in terms of results, but the long drawn out result is to be able to make law more accessible. There are obvious monetary goals that need to be achieved in the process, but the outcome will be, over the next 4 to 5 years, is that more people will be able to get affordable legal help, and do a lot of things as self-help and on autopilot, rather than going to a lawyer. That is still part of it. But and to sort of go a little deeper into that question, when you hire someone early on, say a developer, they've probably never interacted with a lawyer. They don't understand the nature of the problem, but over time they do understand how difficult the process is, and then they are driven to that end goal that the company has.
So it's not a prerequisite that you need to have that shared belief in order to join in your endeavor.
Uh, not the day you get in, but you definitely do need to have the shared belief of wanting to grow, of having that passion to learn and be open to ideas and to contributing to something that could truly change the nature of a very, very slow and mundane industry.
Yeah, cool. I also see an interesting question from Jurgen that because of your recruitment, now with COVID and everybody working from home, how does that affect Spotdraft? I could imagine it affecting the recruitment process, but maybe also work in general, negative and positive. What do you see?
Yeah, I think it was mostly positive. I was, to be very honest, I was quite skeptical of taking the company completely remote because that was not the DNA of the company from the day it started. But we adapted very quickly, and we probably rolled out more lines of code than ever before during the work from home situation. It also sort of got us together as a company. We did a lot of things that we probably would not have done if we were at work. A lot of introspection, a lot of planning for the future, understanding that this is a real problem that's going to live with us for a long time, and enabling that. So we now, our employee pool grew from just the neighboring cities to anywhere in the world. That opened up a lot of talent for us. Lastly, from the business perspective, I think it's been I hate to say this, but some kind of a blessing in disguise, purely because people can no longer sign in person. They can no longer negotiate contracts in person, and they need a solution that manages their legal workflow while working remote. And Spotdraft solves that problem for them.
Okay, cool. So do you see a higher adoption rate?
Yes, and a definitely higher, interest rate for sure. So the adoption, it usually will take anywhere from 60 to 90 days to close a deal of our size, and we've made progress there as well.
Okay, cool. Sonia also asked a question with respect to our previous talk about having the common belief. One last question about that part is what if they don't have the belief at all, and also if it doesn't evolve over time?
Right, Sonia. See, you started this business because you were passionate about this. It's very difficult to ensure that the world around you sees it in the same lens as you do. However, if you can inculcate some feeling of working together and making sure that we have the common shared belief that we will work for our customers. We have 5 things that we say are our mission statements. If they believe in that mission statement, which is we work for the customers, we make sure that we reward people who do extremely good work. We believe in transparency as a company. And if they believe in those shared values of the company, of that organization, may not be its necessary end goal or its economic goal, that's good enough. I think you've got yourself to a good start. I don't think everybody, say, for example, who works in, say, a alcohol manufacturing company necessarily believes in the fact that more alcohol should be sold, but they may believe in working hard and putting that into their day-to-day culture. So that's good enough.
Okay, thanks. Where do you see the company headed? You're doing a lot with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and is there some stuff that is also a question from Leonard, with which AI at the moment cannot help yet in your sector? And and what should improve? Do you see any future developments?
Um, yeah, so I think stuff that cannot improve is things that require core human functions, which is negotiation, face-to-face negotiations, strategy, building the right tax efficient models. Those are kind of things that probably AI may not be the most efficient solution. But things that can be done better is starting to use AI to solve litigation related problems, instead of going to court, running it through the system, tell you, hey, this is likely to be, it's not worth fighting this case because historically the courts have held a certain way, and maybe even adjudicating some of these disputes through the help of AI, maybe traffic tickets, or these could be minor financial disputes that are there that can go through the system and get it auto resolved instead of adding to the burden.
Yeah, cool. We're almost at the end, but some questions still from Jess also. You talked about making sure you get right investors, but how do you deal with giving away more and more controlling stakes to investors as you raise funds?
Oh, trust me, I've had sleepless nights on those. It is so difficult to part with that, but you'll realize the value that they get for the stakes that they ask. Uh, it's also important to understand that some investors will have a financial reason for investing, and if you don't give them that opportunity to create financial interest, um, then probably you may not get the support that you need. So we've heard stories of how some investors who've put in very little money don't really care about the business because that is insignificant, whereas having a decently sized stake in your company will also ensure that they're involved. And remember, this is like a marriage. This is like dating. You need to find the right investor who's suitable for the right time in the business in order to sort of make it work. This startup is you're going to be with them for at least 5, 7, 10 years, and you want to make sure that they add the right value to your business.
Yeah, cool.
If I may, can I ask something?
Sure.
If I may, how do you like choose your investors, like when you're like still new to this and like you're studying, and so you have to look for investors. You say you have to look for the right ones, but like how do you find the right ones? That's a little hard to think about as well. And I don't know.
Yeah, so
this it's like tough.
Yeah, so you'll find the right investors based on your sector or your area of operation or the type of company that you are. It could also be a grant of sorts that educational institutions give, all the way up to something like, we knew that there were certain investors that invested in SaaS businesses like Spotdraft, and we made sure that we reached out to them. So it requires some research. I used Crunchbase to follow companies that I really admired and saw that who were the investors that took them to that growth path, and then reached out to them to fund us.
And you also joined the Get in the Ring experience. Did that bring you any benefits?
Oh, absolutely. It just took us to a whole new stage. We were the small regional company, and right after Get in the Ring, it gave us that global validation and support that we needed. We in fact got 2 clients right out of Get in the Ring, like within Get in the Ring. That was just the start of the journey, and then we went all the way. In fact, if you look at our sales deck, and if you look at our achievements, right in the center of it is the Get in the Ring global winner. And to say that, and to add to that, just the sheer experience of meeting such sharp and intelligent people who are so motivated, and each of them has such a brilliant idea is a very, very enriching experience. So if I were to write a book on my journey of entrepreneurship, I'd probably write a very long chapter on Get in the Ring.
Cool. What did you take away mostly there, except of course to customers and everything you already mentioned? But what was that learning experience? Because you came as a local player, you went into Get in the Ring. What did you experience there?
So I think my biggest takeaway was just learning and understanding everybody's startup journey, and sort of looking through their process and understanding what they did right and wrong, and to be able to implement that. And secondly, also from a pure, sure understanding experience, every evening when we would sit down, I would ask, "What are you doing?" And they would tell me their entire story of what their startup journey was, and what their problems are. So a lot of those resonated with us. The solutions resonated, with to some of the problems that we were having. And I think it was that sheer learning and growth journey in those 3 days that was incredible.
It's the family feel of the community, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it is a family. It is a family. I was just so excited about GITR this year and next year as well. Anything that I can do to contribute, because it doesn't matter what stage a company you are, the amount of learning that you get is just incredible.
Yeah, cool. What would be your most valuable tip for a starting entrepreneur / one of the entrepreneurial students?
Be relentless, never take no as an answer, and keep keep your eyes and ears open. It's so important to you will face more failures in your startup journey than ever before or after, in your professional life. But that is learning, and that is incredible learning. Don't get bogged down by what people say or some temporary failure. uh, this is a marathon. Run it like one, not like 100-meter sprint. I thought that I would have a Lamborghini at the end of a year. That was my startup dream journey. I can see it, but it's still a few years away.
Yeah, cool. So for instance, Becca also in the group, he's also focusing on a big, hairy, audacious goal. So there's also then also occurs doubt, right? That who am I to be able to take on this challenge, like you did, like to take on artificial intelligence, machine learning in a industry that wasn't applying it yet. How did you overcome the self doubt or the doubts? And turn it into perseverance and inner drive and motivation to go push forward.
Yeah, for me, I think it was I had an excellent support system around me, friends, family, who knew the journey that I was taking, and there were days where I would feel like I don't think I can take this anymore, because it just feels like this is a losing battle. But I had told them earlier on what I wanted to do, and they stood beside me and guided me through it. I also had an excellent set of mentors who would uh, who would give me early warning signs on things I should be worried about. So I could navigate a lot of my troubles by just speaking to the support system around me.
Cool. One of those navigators is Marco. He's also in the chat. So it's fun to see the role of the importance there. I don't know what you know about the global school, but we have learning coaches traveling with our students through the modules where they meet field experts, and that's the way they learn the trades. But it's the learning coach that, to me, is really important, to be that guide, that mentor, who doesn't have the answers, but at the same time is always someone you can fall back on.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't stress enough that support system, and somebody who gives you that early warning signal of what is good and what is bad is so important.
Yeah. Okay, well, cool. I don't know, Felix, do you have a parting question?
Well, I think the question Marco asked in the chat was pretty much a good one. So thanks for that. Nothing right now, to be honest.
Okay, thanks, Felix.
Can I add
So,
something?
yeah,
Felix,
go ahead, Marco.
Felix, you are in the business of charity, and you want to do it totally different than charity normally raise money. How do you think that a technology like this can help you with that, or is it maybe a question you can ask?
Sorry, what? I didn't fully get what you said.
You want to do it differently about raising money for charities. Is there artificial intelligence? Could it be a part of it?
I think because of there's like money transactions involved. I think like smart contracts and blockchain could be a potential technology, but that's not a stage where I am right now, to be honest.
I know, but that's maybe a question for you, Shash. I don't know if I pronounce your name
Shashank,
well.
yeah, that's correct.
Is that something you can add to charity? You want to have people on a more game-wise way put money into charity?
Yeah, I think gamification is very important in taking a very traditional approach and making it a more rewarding experience. And definitely during that user experience journey, AI can add a lot of value to take them to the right. Say, for example, if I could look at somebody's interests on Facebook and make a judgment on the kind of venture that they would be interested or the kind of cause that they would be interested in donating to, then that would be very helpful. So you can make sure that they choose the right recipient for the cause that they care about based on their interests elsewhere.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for giving that advice to Felix. Helpful, right, Felix?
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So, Shashank, big thank you for coming to Global School and giving the presentation. We're really happy to have these experts, entrepreneurs that are on their journey still, because it's never ending, but who have taken that journey and those leaps already in the process. And I also really appreciate you sharing the love about Get in the Ring and also being open about its impact on you as a business. So really happy that you were willing to share. And if you're okay with it, I would really love you to be part of the guest speaker in the artificial intelligence and machine learning module that we have, to really get an insight on what it can mean for the entrepreneurs in practice.
Sure, Thomas, I'll do that. And I'll also add in my CTO and co-founder to give some more technical insights as well, if they're required. That'd be my pleasure. It was my pleasure to be a part of this chat. Thank you so much for inviting.
You're so much welcome, and thanks again for being so open and sharing with us. And thanks again, Jurgen, for awesome speaker, awesome entrepreneur, and good luck with the rest of your journey, Shashank, and definitely look forward to reconnecting again. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and namaste from India to everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you.